So if you'll continue to indulge me here, we have more Slash
Sure.
with the Conspirators coming here with World on Fire, which as much as there is to say about each of those Slash experiences, I feel like the narrative around that first record was that there were all the different singers, and then around the second record was that it was more of a band experience with a front man. And then World on Fire, I feel like, was really when, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like it was really when Slash featuring Myles Kennedy and the Conspirators really kind of took off. Like there was really buzz around that, and it was really seen as a important kind of cornerstone piece of the rock world. And I would even argue that, there's something about that era of what Slash was doing independently of the thing he's known for that I think really, without trying to read the tea leaves, it seemed like it gave him some leverage, so to speak, not in a bad way, but it wasn't like he left GNR and disappeared into the sunset. And I feel like World on Fire was a real career resurgence moment where he was of equal value, one might say. It was demonstrated by what inevitably did happen and the way it did happen. What was your sense going into that record of kind of where that band stood, and both internally and externally, as far as where you guys were at creatively, and then from the outside, the reception that the band had gotten at that point?
I think that, yeah, as far as the reception went, I feel like we'd spent enough time kind of paying our dues, showing that this was a thing, and people were starting to become more receptive to it. So that was good. And as far as the dynamic within the band, by that point we'd toured so much together, and really those bonds were there, and there was that kind of that brotherhood that you hope for. And what's interesting is a lot of bands that never happens. There's always bickering, and there's always this drama and this tension. And I play in two bands where that's for the most part, with Alter Bridge, sure, we have our moments. We got to work things out, but generally speaking, we're all pretty low. And
sorry, my dog is
Ethel. What kind of dog is Ethel?
She's a corgi.
Oh, cool! I like corgis. I've been waiting for Mozart to make his appearance, but he hasn't. He's been surprisingly quiet. I thought for sure that little Gapper was going to start and just come in here because it's around dinner time for him, and he gets really pushy.
What kind is yours?
Shih Tzu.
Oh, okay. So another little one.
He's a terror. Yeah, Shih Tzu thinks he's pit bull. So.
Yeah, it's interesting how the different dog breeds don't seem to have any real awareness of size.
Their size.
Like they all think that they're like on a level field with each other.
Right.
That's great. But yeah, and not to oversell the where the Slash thing was at that point, but it really seemed like it was there was a lot of acceptance, I guess, in the rock community that this was a real thing. It wasn't just a Slash side thing. It wasn't a Slash Myles supergroup. That, again, getting back to that idea of these entities coexisting, I feel like that was the record really where it all kind of came together, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. I never even thought of that really, but I think you're right. By that point, we'd been together, touring and making records for 5 years, and that seems to be kind of the magic number where people are like, right. Okay, I think they're a thing now. We'll give it. Let's give it a try. So
yeah. So going back in with Elvis to make The Last Hero. I mean, I can only imagine he's got to feel like another member of the band at this point, right? Like, because there are some bands that have those relationships where it's the same cat, for the whole discography, and there's some where it's a different person every time, and different arrangements work for different groups. What is it about that relationship with Elvis that works so well with both you personally and then with AB in particular?
It's trust. It really boils down to that, like trusting someone's instincts, knowing that when it's all said and done, he's going to get the best out of you. And even there might be things said during the process where you're like, really? You think we should cut that chorus? Or you think that should change in some way? Well, you were right on that one record, so okay. Yeah, I mean, and I think that's what happens, and you trust their filtration process, and also he's a lot of fun to record with. He's kind of a character, you know. He's really funny and really like he's really he's just kind of got it all. If you're going to be locked in the studio with somebody, he's a good one to be locked in the studio with.
Yeah. I feel like that record has this word gets misused these days, but I think the cover is a very iconic feel. Like it looks like I don't mean classic rock as in the genre, but I mean it looks like a classic rock record. Was that something that you felt was reflective of maybe where the songs were coming from? How does the art music marriage work for you, generally speaking, and then specifically with The Last Hero? Because I feel like I can't think about that record without thinking about that cover.
Yeah,
in a way that I wouldn't say that necessarily about the other AB records. Not that the cover art was bad, but there's something really striking about that one.
Very striking, very simple, and I felt like it captured a certain vibe of the lyrics. And I think that I think it might be my favorite AB cover because it is so simple. And I remember we talked with Dan Tremonti, who does the artwork, about that quite a bit, and just like trying to convey what we were hoping to achieve and have it be congruent with the music. And I think he did him and his team did a really great job.
Yeah, that's great. It really does evoke that, because sometimes the art and the record can seem divorced with different bands, where it's like clearly somebody was doing something and then the band's doing something else. And
right.
Yeah, that's why I asked about this one, because it feels, and then sometimes that's just something you've imagined because you as the listener associate it because that's just how it looked when you got it.
Right.
Does Ride the Lightning sound like an electric chair floating in the sky? Or am I just used to that? Yeah. But I feel like this record it really does kind of, that cover's evocative of how it sounds and how it feels. So
right.
It's good to know that I'm not just making that up. So obviously you and I have had a great opportunity to discuss Year of the Tiger at some length in the past, and it remains a favorite of mine. You mentioned Jeff Buckley earlier, and I know I've told you this before, and I don't mean to embarrass you, but I think that as much as Axl and Slash are our Mick and Keith, I think you're our Buckley right now.
Wow.
And the soulfulness, the depth, and particularly with Year of the Tiger, the way that you really put your trauma, your questions, your doubts, it's a very raw record. It's very emotional. And again, not to say that you're not putting yourself in all the other records, but having a couple years on now from Year of the Tiger, how difficult was it to put that much of yourself out there in that way? And because with AB and with Slash, you've got all these guys around you. Those are rock monsters in a way, where you can, and there's some theater involved in that style of music. And then Year of the Tiger is just so.
There it is. Yeah, laying it out.
How difficult was that to get out there?
It was kind of a necessary process for me to work through some things that I thought, interestingly enough, had been worked through years prior in therapy. But I discovered a lot still needed to be worked through. And I think maybe that's why people appreciate that record, is because it's coming from a very honest place. And yeah, before the record came out, was I nervous? absolutely, because I was like, you're really putting it out there. I don't think I realized as it was happening how I would feel about laying it out there for people. I think it was just, a lot of times with records, I just get absorbed in and I get lost in the moment. And my goal was always, where is it going to be coming from the most honest place? Because I'm not interested in I like telling stories, but I generally like the stories to have something that I can relate to. And if I'm going to write from more of a, an autobiographical standpoint, like You're the Tiger, then I'm going to go as deep as I can and have it resonate. And but then once you're standing on the edge and you're about to throw it out to the world, you're like, what have I done? What's going to happen here?
Yeah.
So that was interesting. I was really it's I don't know if I've ever told anybody this, but that was when I started to. It was a few months before that record came out. I was actually on tour with Alter Bridge. And I was really starting to lose sleep over whether it was the right thing to do to release that record. And I was having so much anxiety that I then discovered certain Eastern philosophies and certain teachers. And I was having so much anxiety. That's how I really got into like meditation and whatnot.
And that coincided, little did I know, we did the chat for my podcast, No Prize from God, which is about, belief, unbelief, and everything between. Little did I know that was the serendipity of you and I converging and having that conversation about belief and spirituality and stuff like that. Right as you were releasing that record.
Yeah.
It's pretty neat. It's very special. It also changes the dynamic when you're doing press, but I would also be interested in the fan interactions, right? Because maybe you're out with Alter Bridge and a fan tells you after the show about how much they love this riff, or you're out with Slash and somebody says, "Oh, I love that you guys pulled out that Velvet Revolver deep cut. I didn't think I'd ever hear that live." You're the Tiger. I mean, I can only imagine you probably had some interactions with audience members, right? Who were like, this song about this thing that happened to you reminds me of this thing that happened to me. And I can only imagine it got pretty emotional.
Oh, geez. Yeah. The amount of times I would do meet and greets and then have to, it's part of the reason I started wearing sunglasses. They're not sunglasses. They're actually, I have my reader things on the bottom here,
yeah.
but there's a little haze there because I'd find myself, tearing up a lot. Sure. People would be like, they'd start to share their story and how they connected with the song and the meaning of the record. And I'm kind of a softie, so it's like people talk about this and yeah, it's hard not to get emotional. There he is.
He heard you mention him earlier. He's like, "Oh, you want to hear from me?"